Hi everybody, I have a project tutorial for you today, and this is a new product that is available on my website. It is an MDF box and you will assemble it yourself. You can use whatever papers you want as well. It does have a flexible hinge here for the bow, which is really neat. And there are multiple pieces, but it's really easy to put together. So in this tutorial, I'm going to actually put the box together, and then I am going to show you how I've covered it with the Graphic 45 Deck the Halls paper. So if you wanted to follow along with the Deck the Halls collection, you can, but you can use any paper collection, making this box ideal for any celebration you have, whether it's Christmas, a birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, a just because present, a wedding gift. There's so much you can do with this box. It is a small box though, so that is something that you have to keep in mind. So the inside of the box is enough to hold an album that I have just the base of. There will be a project share later for this, but on the inside, I have the Graphic 45 square tag album, and we'll be decorating it later. So this is 5¼ inches by 5¼ inches. The outside is 5½ by 5½. So it's a relatively small box. It is about 2 3/8 inches deep as well, but it's perfect for those smaller albums like this, and it's just the perfect size for this square tag album, which is fantastic. So stay tuned for the box tutorial, and if you were interested in purchasing this, you can look in the description box below. There will be a link to my website. We are going to be assembling the little MDF gift box. So first I have the back piece or the bottom piece, and then the 4 larger side pieces. This is for the bottom of the box. All of the rest of the pieces are for the top of the box. I'm going to be using tacky glue, but you can also use wood glue for this. You will need glue because these pieces will not snap together fully. Now you have 2 different types of side pieces. So with your flat edge, you have one that has this piece here with like a groove or a notch. So we've got one that's cut out, and then we've got one that's extended. So I've got 2 separate ones, and I'm going to set them aside because we're going to be alternating them. Now for this piece here, I'm going to start, and I'm going to be placing my adhesive on this flat edge where these pieces meet. So it's going to be here, and then here on this flat side of this piece. Then I'm going to set this piece here. Then I'm going to take my second type of side piece. On this one, I'm going to put my adhesive on the same places as I did for that first piece. But then I'm also going to be placing some adhesive here on that side piece like this, and on this edge. Then I'm going to put this piece here, just like this. Then I'll take my third piece, and I'm applying my adhesive to those side pieces, same way I did the previous piece, and then I'll set it right in here. And now I'm going to take my final piece and apply my adhesive across that bottom edge first, and then across both side edges as well. And then I'll set this piece right in here. Now I want to make sure all of my pieces are lined up nice and straight and everything is tight up against that bottom piece, that there are no gaps. And I'm going to just let this dry. While the bottom part is dry, I'm going to work on the lid. This piece we're not going to put on until after we have decorative papers on. And these pieces here are for the bow. So we're going to set those aside and we're going to take the 4 smaller side pieces and the top of the box lid. We're going to do the same thing as we did with the base. So we're going to be taking these pieces and we're going to be adhering them in here. I'm going to turn this upside down to build this so that it is a little bit easier. So now I'm going to apply my adhesive to these small little pieces here. And then I'm going to apply my adhesive across these pieces here and add this in here just like we did on the box bottom. Now I'm going to take the second piece, so just like the last one, there's 2 different edges. So we're going to take the second one and apply some adhesive to this flat section here first, and then onto these edges, and then in here as well. And now this one I'm going to put over here. I'm going to take my next piece and apply my adhesive on this edge first, then across the little grooves and notches. This piece is here, so I'm going to put some adhesive here and here, and then place this side here. I'm taking my final piece, adding my adhesive to this edge first, and then to the sides, and now across each of these smaller sides too, so that everything will be adhered together, and then placing this one here. Just like with the box bottom, I'm going to make sure that everything is lined up straight and everything is close together and touching, and there are no gaps between my pieces. And now I'm going to let this dry. I'll be using the Deck the Halls paper collection by Graphic 45 to decorate my box. So I have this paper here. It's Mistletoe Kisses, if you were following along with the same paper. I'm going to be using the plaid side for the sides of the bottom and then the bottom of the bottom. But I'm also going to be using a piece of this, the front part, for the top of the box that you'll see in the window. And I am going to be cutting this piece here. You can cut any of the 4 corners that you want to if you prefer a different one. But I'm going to be cutting this here, so I have these 4 pieces showing through my window in my box. The frame is 5.5 by 5.5 because the box is also 5.5 by 5.5. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this to 5 3/8. That way it's just a little tiny bit smaller, and I'll have a very small border around my pieces. And then the side pieces are 2.5, so I'm going to cut it to 2 3/8. But I'm going to first cut this one. I'm going to cut this whole strip here. So I'm going to cut this to 5 3/8. Then from the bottom, I'm going to cut 5 3/8. And then I'm going to cut 2 3/8 and 2 3/8. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut a piece 5 3/8 and then 2 pieces that are 2 3/8 because I'm going to use that plaid on the bottom as well. So I'm going to cut my pieces and then I'll come back and I'll show you what they look like and then we'll put them on. Here's my piece. I won't be using these 3 pieces. This piece is going to stay on this side and then these 4 pieces are going to be on my plaid side. So I'm going to set this piece aside for now and take my box. I'm going to add this piece to the bottom section here like this with that very tiny border around it. And I am going to take these pieces here with that small border around it this way. Now I am going to be using some distress ink, so I'm going to ink my edges first and then I'm going to put them on and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Here is the bottom of my box covered. And now I'm going to take my lid and place my lid down on top of it. One thing you want to be careful about when you're putting your pieces down, you need to make sure that this top edge is completely adhered down and there's nothing sticking up so that it doesn't catch whenever you put this lid down on it because it is getting tighter as we're adding layers of paper in here. So you just have to be really careful about that. I'm going to take this piece here and I'm going to set it in the center of my lid. Now you don't have to be super careful because this is larger, but you want to make sure that it's as straight as you can possibly get it just so that it doesn't look funny. But you do have a little bit of room, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this paper down first, and then I'm going to come back and talk about this piece. Now, once your paper is on, you can go ahead and apply this piece next, but you have to decide if you're going to paint this piece, then you need to paint it before you put it on. You can also cover it with paper if you want. You'd have to cut strips or just cut one piece and cut these out. And so it just depends on the look you're going for. Now, these pieces are the bow, and these parts are going to go here, and then the bow is going to curve in here into the center. And so if you're painting this, you might consider painting this as well. So I know that I want this and this to be red. I'm not going to cover this with paper. I'm thinking that I'm going to paint mine, or I might actually ink the edges. So what I'm going to start with, I think I'm going to start with this. I'm using my Graphic 45 Brick Red ink for my papers. So I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to ink these pieces here on both sides, and you will see both sides, and I'm going to ink the top of this so that it's all that same color. I'm also going to ink these little pieces here as well. Now I have all of my pieces colored with my ink. I think I'm just going to leave it like this. I was thinking I might like it to be a brighter red, but I think I'm just going to leave it like this. It's more of a vintage red. I am going to be adding some pieces here to the edge of my lid first, and I've taken the 12 by 12 green paper. It has this on the back side, and I have cut 4 pieces that measure 5 5/8 by 3/4 of an inch. And I am just going to be placing these pieces here to cover the sides. This is the lid once the green paper is on. And now I'm going to go ahead and adhere this right down to the top of my box lid. And when putting this piece down, you want to be very careful and make sure that it is straight and at the edge on all 4 sides. So once I place this on, I'm just going to press it down and then very carefully just run my finger across these 4 edges to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be, and then I'm going to press this down. You can set something heavier on top of here to hold this down until it's dry as well. Once the lid is dry, I'm going to come over here and take this piece. I'm going to pop all of these pieces out. If you have a hard time popping any of these pieces out, there are little tabs, one on each piece. You can use a craft knife to go through and cut that little tab, and it will help it to drop out a little bit easier. These two pieces are going to connect together like this. And then these little pieces here are going to go down in each of these, but I am going to place some adhesive into each of these holes, and then take my piece and press it down right into the hole as far as it'll go. This one is going to go into that center hole, so I'm just going to add some adhesive to that center. And then place that piece right down inside of there. And then I'm going to take this piece and put adhesive on the back side. And then I'm going to slide it down over top of the piece that I just put on. Now these pieces are going to go here and here. But you have to be very careful that you don't force these or push on these too hard, because they will break. So I need to remove this for now. And I need to let this piece dry first. I'm actually going to put some adhesive here. It's going to be covered so you won't see that. I should have put some in the inside before I stuck this on, but I can do this and get it right down in there. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to take one of these pieces and I'm going to flip it upside down and place it here, just like this. And I'm going to do this on all four and put one of these on each of these four square pieces. And then I'm just going to allow this to dry before I fold those up. Now while this is drying, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cover the inside of my box. So the same green paper that I used for the outside of the lid, I'm using this. I have one piece that's 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. It's going to go down here on the bottom. And I have 4 pieces that measure 5 1/4 by 2 3/8. And these are going to be these inside pieces here. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply these down, and then I will come back and we will finish with the box top. I will show you the inside of my box in just a minute. Now, what I do to make sure that I can cover the inside of my lid with paper is I have my box just sitting together, but it's upside down, and I've taken pieces of my graphic 45 paper and I'm putting one piece down in each side of this box, because if I were to put more paper in the lid on the inside, I need to make sure that I can still lift this off and it's not too tight that it doesn't fit smoothly. Some paper is really thick, so if you are not using graphic 45 paper, you're using a different brand, you want to check this before you put any paper in. So what you should be able to do is lift this box off very easily. If it's too thick, you won't be able to do that. This is what the inside of the box looks like. And so one way you can also kind of get a feel is if you can move this box. It's probably a little bit hard to see on camera, but if you move the box, you can see from side to side there's a little bit of movement, and that's what we need to be able to put our paper in. Now for the inside of my lid, I'm using the same paper I used for the inside of the box. I do need to bring in the second sheet to cut this piece. It's 5.5 by 5.5, and it's going to go down here. And then I've got 4 pieces that measure 5/8 of an inch by 5.5 inches, and these are going to go here on the insides. So I'm going to cover these, and then we'll come back and we will work on that bow. Once I have my lid completely decorated, I can go ahead and get this down on here. You can see it is a tighter fit now with that paper, so I just want to be careful and make sure that everything is glued down nice and well. And I'm going to just slide this on a couple of times to get it used to going in there, and it will get a little bit easier. Okay, and so now the last thing I need to do is add some adhesive to the inside of this little notch piece here. And then I'm going to bend this in and connect it to the center. Now I will need to hold this down until it does dry, or I could set something on here that's a little bit heavier, but I don't want this to snap off, so I want to be really careful with it. So I'm just going to hold mine. Once this one is dry, I'm going to do the same thing with each of these. And I didn't do it on the first one. I'll come over here and do it so my hand is not in the way. I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive here at the bottom of this as well, since it will be on here, so that it will be flat. I could actually add it into this whole entire section, it looks like. No, I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to do it to this bottom section of the notch so that it's here. And then I'm going to do that to all 4 of these, carefully doing it one at a time, holding it until it is dry. And then I'm going to come back and add this piece in right to the top to cover those. Now I've just taken some adhesive to this piece, and I'm going to set this one right down here in the center. And again, I'm just going to hold this down until it dries. I don't know that I have anything that's small enough, that's heavy enough to sit in here to hold this down until it dries. But you could also set something in here if you don't want to hold this. So now this is my box. I want to be very careful. I do not want to try to use the bow to pull the lid off. So I am just going to lift up like this to remove my lid and place it back down. This can be broken, so you just don't want to pull on it. So here is my little box. And now what I think I'm actually going to do, I have a glitter spray. I got it from Michaels. I can't remember what the brand is. I will spray this and then I'll bring it back and show you. But I'm going to spray this entire box on the outside to give it a little bit of sparkle, especially this red bow in the red frame piece. I want that to sparkle. So I'm going to do that, and then we are going to finish up. So this is what I used to add some sparkle. So you can see I have just added this to the top. I need to let it finish drying. And I did add some, I didn't add nearly as much to the bottom, but I did add it to the bottom of the box as well, but mostly on that top part so that the red is sparkly. Now I'm going to let this dry completely, and that is going to be all for this tutorial. But if you want a sneak peek, obviously it's a box of what I am going to be making for the inside. I'm going to be using one set of the Graphic 45 square ivory tags. So there are 9 of them in here. I may not use all 9, but I'm planning on it at this point. And I am going to make a tag album to fit inside of the box. But this will take a while before it is available because this will be part of my Graphic 45 brand ambassador project. So it will be shared on the Graphic 45 YouTube channel and blog at some point in the future. So I hope you will stay tuned and make this. Or if you don't want to and you have other plans for your box, that is perfectly fine too. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave me a comment down below. I love to hear from you. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.